Hi everyone, welcome to another Joseki lesson. In this video, let's keep talking about the pincer. In the past couple of videos, we learned about Black's 3-3 invasion after the 5 and 6 exchange right here. And this is the recommended Joseki, definitely for beginners and most amateur players. But as you grow stronger, when you become a Q player, and definitely for dumb players, you're going to see this move, jumping out. And this is one of those Josekis or variations that are very difficult to teach, because this will lead to many fights. Every variation will result in a fight. And that's inevitable because number 4 and 6 are divided, and number 5 and 7 do not have any base here on the side. So the two sides will have to fight it out. So in this video, I think I'll just show you the basic moves, some of the older so-called Josekis, maybe a little outdated, but definitely playable still for amateur players, and just show you some of the things that might happen. But you really just have to play it out yourself in games and see what kind of moves, what kind of variations you prefer. So after number 7, it's basically impossible for number 4 and 6 to connect immediately. So white has a few options. One is to take care of the corner. Usually you play it A right here. And B and C are related. So they're very similar with some differences, but they're similar to A. The idea is to protect the corner. And usually that's what you do as white in this situation. But of course, you can also take care of this stone on the upper side by playing something like this or this, right? So D and E really depends on what white already has. In this case, the upper side or the upper right, right? If white already has a very strong position here and want to build on the upper side, white will choose D or E. But in this situation, white is basically confined to A, B, and C. So for the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to show this move. But of course, if you play here or here, there's going to be some differences in real games, and you can just try it out yourself, right? So after number 8, black again has a few choices. Just mark it here. One is to make things more complicated by playing this kind of approach move, right? Starting a new group here on the left side. Pretty rare. Another move will be right here, this shoulder hit against this stone, really putting a lot of pressure on this white stone right here with B. And there's also C. It's a counter pincer to white's pincering stone right here, right? This is really fighting move, C right here. And unofficially, I don't think this really shows up in Joseki books, but you see this all the time. Amateur players playing this move right here at D, right? It's kind of threatening to come into the corner. So we can talk about all these moves, and I'll show you some very basic variations that come out of A, B, C, and D. So if you play here, how should you respond as white? Usually you can't go wrong with number 10 and 12 like this. And black has a cutting point right here, so black will have to take care of it either by playing this diagonal move, and white can just take sente and play L square. Right? The corner, black can take, but white can put a lot more pressure on 5 and 7 by playing at number 14, taking sente. Or black can play something like this, putting more pressure on white. White can block here. So this is not necessarily good for black, because white has a pretty strong position on the corner, and black kind of owes a move here on the left side, and it also kind of owes a move that allows it to jump out on the outside, right? So maybe not a great idea, especially for beginners and many amateur players to play at number 9, right? You're starting a new group, and while white has a relatively nice position on the corner. But of course, if you enjoy fighting, you can try it out and see what happens. Another move is right here. So this is where a lot of the old Josekis stem from. And personally, I really don't like this move because it's just so complicated. The fights potentially can be really complicated, and the standard variation that a lot of amateurs fall back on is really boring, right? So what happens now is that number 6 is under a lot of pressure, and now what white needs to do usually is to kick here first, because if you don't kick here, black is going to have this 3-3 invasion sometime down the line that can take a lot of territory potentially, and it can also just kind of give up number 5 and 7 and take the corner instead, right? So territorially, that's still going to be favorable to black to take the corner. So kicking here first is better for protecting the corner on white's part. And an old variation is for black to simply block here, and white will play number 12 and 13. So this variation favors white because the corner is pretty big. 20 points, right? That's pretty big. And black cannot really come in. If black comes in, then white can play something like this to kill the corner. The old Joseki will have white play here in exchange with number 15. And this exchange is bad for white because this exchange does not reinforce the corner, but it gives black a more solid shape by completely capturing number 6. So sometime down the line, if this group becomes weaker, white has other choices like this that can potentially destroy black's eye space here on the side, right? So white will want to leave it here and take sente, and this is a variation that favors white. And that is why usually the Joseki is for black to stand down here, play this descent. And now white will have to save number 6. Otherwise, if you play on the side here, this will be simply too solid for black. So what white will have to do is to crawl here first, bend here second, I don't know exactly why, and then white crawls again, black extends. When the upper side is black's sphere of influence, white should be happy to just jump out here. Black will probably play something like this. White adds another move, and black plays on the outside, forming a wall here, and white takes the territory on the upper side. This is about even, but kind of boring. I find this Joseki very boring, because white doesn't really capitalize on black's weakness here. Right? So what's more interesting for me is for white to crawl once more, gaining more liberties, and black will have to extend here again. And what happens now is that white can potentially start a fight. There are a couple choices. One is this. If black connects here, then white can push and play the Atari move twice, and this way black will lose this race to capture. Of course, black can make something happen here on the corner, probably taking the corner, but these 4 stones will die, and this is probably better for white, right, by taking the territory here. But again, black has a nice wall, and black can potentially take the corner. So this is one variation that white can try. Of course, if you consult AI and so-called modern Joseki books, they'll recommend number 20, right? And as black should probably still play this move to ensure a solid wall on the outside. So the sequence here is different from the previous one. But if black wants to save the group, it can, actually, right? White cannot play this Hane because black will just capture all these white stones with number 33. So that's not okay for white. So white will just have to keep extending. And this is going to be a fight, right? So white is not completely alive on the upper side. White has a new group here, the corner. Black can still come in. Black, this group has no eye space at this moment, right? So this is going to be a really complicated fight. And that's what number 18 can do by crawling here once more. And this is just going to get really complicated. I don't know how to continue except for showing you this very basic Joseki. And this is playable for both sides. But if you're in this situation, you definitely would want to play something like this, right? Because it's more exciting for white to play this way. And what if you're black, right? If you're black in this situation, if I were black, I wouldn't really play this move. The more common move these days with amateurs and even professionals is this counter pincer. This is more interesting. It makes more sense, right? You want to pincer your opponent. You don't want to allow white to settle on the upper side, as in the previous pattern, right? So if you pincer here, then white again has 2 choices. One is to jump out, right, and start this fight. So what's good for black is that with number 9, black always has number 11. There's attachment underneath that will allow black to connect, right? So when black plays this, white can just ignore this, right? If you play, then this is not going to turn out well for white. White will be forced to make a living shape here, and number 10 will be cut off, and black will have a nice wall on the outside. So this is not good for white. So white can just leave it here. It's a slow move, right? 11 is a safe move, but a little slow, so white can keep playing on the outside and ignore this. So that's number 10, and that's going to lead to very complicated fights. So you're going to see just people jumping out all over. White really has 2 groups that needs to jump out, and black can put more pressure here. So it's going to be quite complicated. And this move too, right? The idea is similar, is for black to gain a little bit of eye space here on the side, maybe at least 1 real eye if it really wants to build it, right? 1 real eye here. It's a good start, but the disadvantage, the reason why AI and many professional players don't play at number 9 and 10 doing this exchange is because black doesn't have the 3-3 invasion, right? So sometime down the line, you might want to trade 5 and 7 with the corner territory. So black has 1 more option there. But if you don't play this, then what happens is that you can also just ignore number 9 and play elsewhere, right? Take sente elsewhere. If black wants to kill number 6, it can. But number 6 can still move out if it really wants to in the future when white wants to attack black somehow. And moves like this is also sente, right? In terms of connecting with number 6, right? So this attachment underneath and number 14 is still a pretty big endgame move that can connect with number 6, right? This Hane will not work. Black will just get killed here, right? So number 14 is still big. and the corner territory is complete after number 12. So it's still playable for white, even if white just gives up number 6. So that's number 9. I think I made it sound easier than it actually is, but usually you see players jumping out here, jumping all over the board, and it's going to be a really tough fight for both sides. But it's exciting, and you can decide for yourself whether you like this fight or not. Personally, I would prefer to play as black in this situation. I find it a little hard to take care of both groups as white, but you can decide for yourself. So that's number 9. And number 8 right here and here are very similar. So black again has this counter pincer, has this move, and for number 8 here on the third line, maybe it moves like this, right? So keeping white's low, and black is arguably in a better position, right, after this. And number 8 right here is a 2-space jump from number 4. It's faster, right? It moves a little faster. So if black jumps here, white doesn't really have to jump again, right? So that's better. If you compare this to this. So if you jump at number 12, if number 8 is here, then theoretically, or in practice as well, black can play something like this to seal off the left side. So white can no longer develop the left side. We'll probably have to play something here to protect the corner, right? So this is probably better for black. And that's why number 8, it's not a human move, really. It's recommended by AI. It's an AI move. It moves faster on the left side, but the disadvantage is that the corner is open. But I think AI's logic here is that number 8 right here also leaves the corner open, right? So it doesn't really matter if it leaves it a little more open with this move, right? So this move also exists. Lastly, let's talk about white playing on this side, right? Reinforcing number 6. So in this situation, it doesn't work. Usually it's, let's say, white already has a strong position here, something like this, let's say. And now we have this pattern right here. So if you're white, you'd want to develop the left side because you already have 8 and 10. It's a nice wall here, right? You probably want to play at number 14 rather than saving in corner and allow black to keep you down here on the third line. This will be pretty bad. Black having a wall here, that really reduces the value of number 8 and 10. Right? So if you're white in this situation, you want to keep building the left side by playing at number 14. But black can kind of enclose the corner. So black will probably play something like this, number 15. Potentially, there are really, really complicated variations after number 15, and I'm not going to get into it. So the most often you see is right here. White just playing this attachment underneath, an extension, and number 18, the corner is not alive, so white owes a move here, number 20. Corner is pretty good, right? About 15 points, not quite. But black is a very strong position on the outside, and black also has sente. So white theoretically has this move, this cut in the future, but it may not be that big, right? Especially at this point in the game when the board is empty. So black doesn't really have to worry about it too much, or black can keep building from these 3 stones, which is a very solid position, right? So black has more options this way. If we don't look at number 12 and 14, then this pattern is definitely better for black because white is enclosed. But with 12 and 14 on the left side, this is playable for white. So this is situational, number 14 right here. And number 15 is the response that black can have. So that's really all the variations I have for this video. Pretty basic, mostly pretty basic. But once we get into these variations, they get really complicated really, really fast. So feel free to try out some of these moves, some of these basic variations on your own, and see what happens. In the future, when I have more time, or if there's a demand, I can get into some of these more complicated variations, especially the fighting and what happens after those fights. But for now, I think, especially for amateurs, this video should be a good introduction to what happens after black plays here at number 7, after white's pincer. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for watching.